They thought he had no talent to become an adventurer since he could only learn the weakest ability, but after continuously training it for years, it makes him completely overpowered. The story begins with a man named Noor, as we see him working to clean out a drain. After he finishes, he goes to his construction job, where he seems to be more energetic than everyone else. His manager mentions that thanks to him, they will be able to stick to their schedule, but he suddenly hears a voice asking for help, and as he follows it, he sees soldiers fighting against an enormous minotaur. 15 years earlier, we see Noor living with his sick mother. He makes tea for her, and he's about to feed the goats, but she makes him promise he won't go beyond the rock. She starts coughing, and he goes to boil water for her, but she stops him and starts cleaning his face. She apologizes to him since she can't do anything to help, and she tells him to live however he likes, because she doesn't want to destroy his life by being a burden on him. At night, he brings soup for his mother, but is shocked because she has already passed away. The next day, he makes a grave for her beside his father, and afterward, he wipes his tears and gets back to work, but he gets sad when he realizes he's eating dinner all alone. After that, he finds a book at home and remembers his father's story about an adventurer who never gave up and always fought evil for the sake of his friends, which makes him think about his mother's advice to live a life that he wants. The next day after feeding the animals, he places flowers on his parents' graves and notes that he is going to leave town for the first time to become an adventurer. He goes out on his journey and is surprised when he reaches a huge city. As he enters it, he's excited to see so many people, and his eyes light up when he sees adventurers walking around. He heads to the guild, but the guild master tells him to go away since it isn't for kids, but Noor notes the guards at the front of the city told him to go there if he wants to become an adventurer. The guild master doesn't want him to do something stupid because it will make his parents worry, but he tells him they're both dead. He asks Noor for his name and mentions that no one of his age has ever come to the guild. He explains that people who want to become part of the Royal Capital's Adventurer Guild must take lessons at the Royal Training School, where they will be trained for their class. He tells Noor that if he wants to become an adventurer, he needs to get a skill first. Noor goes to the school with the hopes of becoming a swordsman, because in the books he has read, they are capable of defeating a giant dragon with a single swing. But after a few months of training, his teacher tells him to stop, because he thinks Noor doesn't have what it takes to achieve his goal, and if they keep continuing, it will just be a waste of time. He mentions the only thing Noor was able to learn was parrying to evade an attack, so he advises him it would be better for him if he chooses another path. But he goes to a warrior training school, since they are just like adventurers, but after another few months, his instructor mentions that even though he has given the training everything, the only thing that has gotten slightly better is his physical abilities, and if he keeps on pushing himself, he will lose his life. He decides not to give up and goes to every school possible, but he's eventually rejected by all of them. He returns to the guild master, who is shocked that even after attending the 3-month training programs of every school, he hasn't learned a single skill, so he tells Noor he can't register someone like him to the guild. Noor returns to his home, but instead of being depressed about not having any talent, he decides he has to work even harder to achieve his goals. He makes a wooden sword, and remembers that his instructor told him if he keeps practicing a skill, he might be able to master it, so he decides to become a master at parrying. A year later, we see Noor is capable of evading 10 swords at a time, and even though he doesn't have any new skills, he's still getting better. After 3 years, Noor can now parry 100 swords, but he's disappointed he hasn't gained new skills, which makes him think his dream of becoming an adventurer will never come true. After 10 years, Noor has mastered the parry skill, and he's able to evade 1,000 swords, but he still has no new skills. He says farewell to his parents, as he tries to become an adventurer one last time. He goes to the Adventurers Guild and tells them all his skills, but the receptionist suggests that he go to the training schools first, but she's shocked when he mentions he has already gone to all of them. She tells him he can't be registered there, but as he's about to leave, the guild master arrives and he recognizes him. Noor tells him how he has been training the whole time, but the only thing he has managed to achieve was getting a little better at parrying. The guild master tells Noor about the different ranks of adventurers, with the highest being S and the lowest being E. For a person to become an E-ranked hunter, they must have more than one useful skill, so Nor thinks he has no other option but to give up, but the guild master notes there's actually an F rank that not many people know about. Nor gets excited and wonders if he can register for it, but the guild master mentions there are conditions to become an F rank adventurer. He will be forbidden from taking any quest that involves killing or going out of the city to gather items, and the only requests he can accept are miscellaneous tasks around the city. He thinks no one is stupid enough to become a hunter just to do useless tasks, but Nor still wants to register. He gives Nor his license, and he has a sparkling look in his eyes, since it was his dream to become an adventurer. He starts accepting tasks around the city, and he continues training his parry skill. At night, Nor looks at his license, and thinks about how his dream of becoming an adventurer and helping people has come true, so he can't ask for anything more. Back in the present, Nor is shocked to see a huge cow, since he has only seen them in books. The soldiers try to protect a girl, but the Minotaur rushes at them and slams one of them into a wall. The rest of the soldiers try to attack, but with just one swing of its axe, it kills everyone. It prepares to attack the girl, but Nor throws a rock at it to draw its attention. The Minotaur starts rushing towards him, and as it tries to attack with its horns, Nor parries the attack and pushes it into a wall. The Minotaur gets up and continues attacking with its axe, but Nor manages to parry all of the attacks. He tries to look for an opening to counterattack, but he remembers he has no attack skill, so he can't do anything. The Minotaur turns its attention to the girl and is about to hit her with its axe. Nor manages to save her, but his sword is shattered into pieces. He thinks he can't become a hero, but he still wants to protect the girl, because his father told him that an adventurer never gives up no matter the situation. The Minotaur attacks again, and Nor parries it with his broken sword, which makes the axe fly away and cut off its head. The girl introduces herself as Lynn, thanking Nor for saving her life, but when she asks for his name, he leaves without telling her, saying he's not important. As he walks around the city, he's surprised by how much he's struggled against a cow that wasn't even a demon, so he thinks he needs to work even harder. A girl named Ines approaches Lynn and she apologizes for not being with her, but Lynn notes that she was the one who told her not to come with her, so it's not her fault. They are interrupted by a man named Darkin, who tells her to return to the castle, because Lord Rain wants to see her. After talking to her, Rain asks Darkin if it's true a Minotaur was in the city, because they're supposed to be demons of the abyss, and are only in the deepest parts of dungeons. Darkin confirms it, and Rain believes it was summoned by someone. He notes they found a ring on the body of a merchant, which is believed to be the source of the summoning. After their investigation, it was found that the ring is of a high purity which can't be found in the market. Rain notes that Minotaurs are A-level demons, so even wealthy people can't simply buy items to capture them, so Darkin mentions that the crest on the ring is from the magic empire of Deridas. The leader of Deridas has always been against them, but they are surprised by how he isn't even hiding himself. They believe that besides assassinating Lynn, his main goal was for them to start a war with him. Rain thinks he must want the relics from the Dungeons of the Lost, which is their kingdom's resource. Rain reads the report on Nor, and sees he defeated the Minotaur, but he disappeared when they tried following him. Meanwhile, Nor goes to the guild, where the master is relieved to see he's alive, but Nor is confused by why he's worried about him. He mentions how a demon appeared at the entrance of the dungeon, which was close to where Nor was working, so they were worried when he didn't return to the guild. The master wonders why his face is all dirty, so he mentions he cleaned the drains before coming there. The master tells him he should be relieved he didn't run into the demon, because he used to be a rank A hunter and he would have died if he faced it, so Nor is relieved he only had to face a cow. He wonders what happened to the demon, and he's impressed when the master notes he was defeated by a mysterious man with just one attack. After paying him for his work, he wonders if Nor has thought about getting a normal job, because he would make way more without the guild taking a 30% cut. Lynn suddenly appears behind Nor and mentions she found him using her long-distance detecting skill, which makes him think her class must be a thief, but she notes she's a magician, but she has knowledge of all 6 skill systems. She realizes everyone in the guild is watching them, so she asks to talk with him outside. The guild master pulls him aside and asks him what he did, but he assures him he didn't do anything that would get him in trouble. He goes outside with Lynn, who uses soundproofing and concealment skills so no one can hear their conversation. He wonders what she wants to talk about, and she just wants to thank him for saving her life, because his actions not only helped her, but also saved the lives of countless people in the nation. He mentions she's highly skilled, so he thinks he just interfered in the fight, but she can't imagine what would have happened if he hadn't helped her. She offers to reward him for his actions, but he says her gratitude is enough for him. She mentions her father wants to meet him, and she's also a person of status, so she can't let him go without giving him something, but no matter what she offers him, he refuses to accept it. She starts crying and notes that until he accepts something from her, she isn't going to move, which reminds him of his past, so he agrees to meet her father. As they reach her house, Noor is surprised by how big it is, whereas Lin asks for his name. She sees Ines and asks her to take them to her father, so Noor thinks she's their housemaid, but she appears wary of him. They run into a man named Gilbert, who starts asking questions about Noor, but Ines tells him to step aside, since Noor is Lin's guest. She tells Gilbert to come with them, because she thinks having more escorts will be better in case something happens. Meanwhile, Rain and the king discuss how Darius doesn't care for their non-aggression treaty, and Rain notes it was evident from their last meeting, where he wanted them to give him the right to the dungeons. Noor and the others arrive, and he realizes that Lin's father is the king. He apologizes for coming in casual clothes, because Lin wanted to come quickly, but the king doesn't care about it. Noor apologizes in advance in case he says something impolite, but the king thinks it will be easier to talk with him. He thanks him for saving his daughter, and Noor thinks he can head back home now that he has met him, but he refuses to let him go without giving him a reward. He wants to know if Noor wants land or money, but he refuses to accept anything. So the king offers him treasures from the dungeon, and mentions they have the oldest dungeon in the world, where many of the rarest items have been found. He tells Noor to take half of the items, and Rain interferes, saying he's being too generous, but Noor still refuses to accept. He sees Noor isn't interested in material things, so he takes the sword from his throne and offers it to him. Noor grabs the sword and is surprised by how heavy it is, but seeing Rain's reaction, he thinks it must be priceless, so he refuses to take it, but the king mentions it's useless to him, because he just grabbed it during one of his missions, so Noor accepts the sword, and as he swings it, everyone is surprised by his power. The king asks Noor to train his daughter, but he refuses since he thinks he has nothing to teach her. After he leaves, he sees the size of his sword is the same as the drain he cleans, so he thinks it will help him. He's stopped by Ines, who apologizes for her rudeness to him, and mentions she was supposed to be with Lin to protect her, so she's grateful he saved her life. She wants to help Noor with anything he wants, and he accepts her offer so they won't keep him there. Ines warns Noor that while the king and Lin don't mind his behavior, she won't tolerate it in the same way. After that, he's stopped by Gilbert, who wants Noor to show him his strength, but he just wants to go home. Gilbert suggests having a mock battle, and he thinks it's a great opportunity for a new adventurer like him, so he takes a wooden sword and gets ready to fight. Noor doesn't know how much of a fight he can put up against him, but he decides to use the chance to learn as much as he can. The fight begins and Gilbert starts attacking him with his spear, but Noor easily dodges all of his attacks. He finds Gilbert slow, and he thinks Gilbert must be holding back, so he stops the battle and tells him to fight more seriously. Gilbert wonders if he was subconsciously holding back since Noor is a normal human, but he turns it up a notch. He starts attacking once again, and Noor sees he's faster than before, but he's surprised that Gilbert leaves himself wide open after every attack. Gilbert gets frustrated because his attacks aren't connecting, but Noor thinks he still isn't fighting seriously. He asks him to speed up even more, and seeing the look on his face, he wonders if Gilbert is already fighting at full strength, while he has gotten stronger due to his training. Gilbert gets angry and uses a skill to attack, but is shocked when it still doesn't hit him, and Noor accepts defeat even after dodging the attack. After Noor leaves, everyone thinks he survived because Gilbert used a training spear, and they mention that a talent like Gilbert is extremely rare. Gilbert thinks about how from the moment he picked up a spear, he knew he had a talent for it, but he soon got bored because he had no one left to give him a fight. He returned to the royal capital after hearing the news that their relations with the neighboring countries was getting worse. He started to hunt demons, and when he heard someone strong had joined the corps, he challenged them to a fight, but he easily defeated him. He talks with his teacher about how life would be more interesting if there were more people as strong as him, so his teacher wonders what he thinks about Ines, and he thinks she's strong in a different way, but in a mock battle he would still beat her. Gilbert thinks his teacher must also be bored since he has to train soldiers who are nowhere as strong as him, but he considers it his duty, because he knows he can't win a war on his own, no matter how strong he is. He mentions someone even stronger than him might appear someday, and Gilbert hopes that the time comes soon. After hearing about Nor, he wanted to know what kind of person he was, but when he saw him, he didn't think he was strong enough to defeat a Minotaur, but he still couldn't land a single attack on him. He even tried to hit him with his strongest attack, knowing it would kill him if it hit, but he still wasn't successful. He was also humiliated when Nor decided to admit defeat, even though he won the battle, but Gilbert is also excited that someone capable of fighting him has appeared. Meanwhile, Nor thinks about how Gilbert's last attack was amazing, and he thinks Gilbert held back so he could avoid the attack. He was starting to think he had gotten strong, but the fight made him realize he needs to work harder. The next day, Nor is surprised by how easily he's able to clean the drain with his new sword. He wonders how else he can use the sword to help people, and Lynn appears behind him. He remembers how Ines told him not to act casually in front of her, but as he tries to be formal, Lynn tells him to relax and wonders if someone said something to him. She apologizes for suddenly showing up, and Nor wonders what she wants, so she tells him she wants to become his page. Nor doesn't know what she's talking about, so she explains that a page is someone who will take care of his everyday needs, and she will just learn on the side. She promises not to trouble him, and she just wants to follow him around, but he refuses. She wonders if he's unhappy with something that happened at the castle, or if he thinks she's too young to help him. She assures him she can help, and she mentions she received the highest marks in all 6 training schools, but he thinks there's nothing he can teach her. She tries to convince him by showing her skills, so she makes icicles and melts them using fire. She cuts down a huge tree with a knife, and then shows off her plasma sword and destroys a tree. She thinks Nor must be impressed by her, but he still tells her no, and he feels bad for her, because she thinks he's someone who can teach her. He decides to show her his useless skills, so that she will see he isn't someone who is capable of teaching others. As Lynn goes home, she thinks about how at the training schools, all the instructors told a story about a boy with no talent. The boy attended the 3-month training period of all the schools, and everyone thought no one with such little talent could exist. She remembers when the instructor of the magic school named Oaken showed her he could increase his tiny flame skill by a little, and ever since then, she has been trying to do the same, but has never succeeded. But when she saw the size of Nor's tiny flame, she couldn't believe it, because it was way bigger than Oaken's, who is known as the greatest magician in the world. She feels embarrassed that she tried to show off her skills to such a man, who isn't only strong in his body, but also in his mind, which is why he will never yield to anyone. She knows that in the future, she will need to lead the kingdom with her father and her brother. Their family motto is that the royal blood needs to be strong, so she decides she needs to learn from Nor no matter what. At night, she approaches him again, and decides to follow him until he allows her to become his student, because she knows that the strength her family has sought for generations resides within him. We see Rain as he thinks about why his father would give away his sword to Nor. We learn that back when the king was an adventurer, he delved into the Dungeon of Lost with the 6 sovereigns, and after years of exploring, the Black Blade was the greatest relic that they found. It was made from a material that was even harder than mithril or orichalcum, and there was nothing that could even scratch it, so it became known as the Unbreakable Blade. But they wondered how it could be in such bad condition when it was indestructible. Rain thinks his father was crazy to just give it away, but he knows there's an ominous presence that threatens their country, so his father must be gambling on Nor. We see Nor with Len, and he wonders if it's okay for her to be out in the streets, but she mentions she's also an adventurer. He tells her he needs to go to the guild, and she's happy to follow him, calling him her sensei. He realizes she will keep following him, but he thinks she will eventually see that he isn't worth it. They head to the guild, and the master wonders what's going on, and Nor says it's complicated. They ask for a job, and since Lynn is rank B, they can go on a goblin hunting job as a party. Nor freaks out hearing this, and gets excited thinking he can finally take a job outside of the city. He worries he's taking advantage of Lin's rank, so he wonders if it's really okay, but she happily agrees. The master tells them to go to the forest of beasts and to bring back the goblin's ears as proof. They head to the forest, and Noor asks Lin about goblins, so she mentions that they usually eat fruit and small animals, but they grow rapidly in number, and when they run out of food, they turn to human settlements, so the guild sends adventurers to cull their numbers, but they don't wipe them out, because they are still a part of the forest's ecosystem. Noor is surprised by how much she knows, and thinks there's even less that he can teach her. They continue deeper into the forest, but find it strange that they haven't encountered any goblins yet. Lin detects something in the distance, so they decide to check it out, but when they arrive, she mentions that the presence vanished. They continue to look around, and they find the body of a goblin. Lin uses her uncover spell, and it reveals an enormously jacked goblin. Noor can't believe how big goblins are, but he tells Lin not to worry, since goblins are the weakest monster. But Lin recognizes it as a goblin emperor, a subspecies of the goblin king, that is artificially created using forbidden research. She recognizes it as a catastrophe class threat, but she thinks about how Noor was so excited to fight goblins, so she thinks he predicted this, and she decides to follow his lead. The goblin charges at Noor, but he parries its attacks. It starts pushing him back, but he parries again, giving Lin the chance to attack it, but the goblin dodges all her spells. It starts throwing trees at them, but Noor is able to knock them away. Lin notices the goblin is healing too quickly, so she tells Noor to aim for the gem on its head. The goblin throws multiple trees at him, testing how much he can parry, and he thinks he can't protect Lin, but she suddenly uses a wind blast to blow them all away. The goblin instantly heals from the damage, and Noor thinks he has no chance of destroying the stone. But he gets an idea, and tells Lin to use her wind blast on him. She notes that it can blow down a castle wall, so he won't survive, but he tells her to blast his sword. The goblin prepares to attack again, but Lin uses her wind blast, pushing Noor with insane speed. He jumps up to attack, and he manages to hit the gem, knocking it out of the goblin's head. It starts screaming in pain, and Lin manages to grab the gem. Noor tells her to finish it off, so she uses her Hellfire spell to finish it. Noor can't believe how tough a goblin was, so he thinks he still needs more training before he tries again. Rain receives a report about the Goblin Emperor, and we learn it was several times larger than a normal Goblin King. Rain notes the gem was a massive mana stone, and he thinks the Magic Empire must be behind it. Back at the guild, the master is proud of Noor for finally fighting a goblin, but he notes it was tougher than expected. He gives Lin all the credit, saying he just helped out, but she says it was the other way around. He thinks about how most adventurers think goblins are no big deal, but he's proud of his first hunt. He mentions how strong it was, and the gem on its head, so the master starts to think it wasn't a regular goblin, but Lin agrees with Noor and just calls it a normal goblin. The master asks for the goblin's ear, but they realize they burnt the whole body, so they aren't going to get paid. Rain receives a report, which mentions that strange things have been happening all over the kingdom, and he thinks their enemies are behind it. So he orders his men to hunt them down and summon the 6 sovereigns, as he realizes the Magic Empire is planning to invade the kingdom. We see Noor eating with Lin, and we learn that the guildmaster decided to compensate them because he wants them to celebrate their first hunt. Noor thinks the food tastes amazing, but he wonders how long Lin is going to stick around, thinking her family must be worried about her. She decides to go home, promising to join him again, but Rain suddenly appears, telling them to head to the mountain district. He mentions that he will provide a carriage for them, and he promises to pay Noor, so he agrees to do it. They make their way to the mountain district, and we learn that Noor accepted the task because he wanted to know what it's like to ride a carriage. He enjoys the trip, as he thinks about visiting other countries as an adventurer, and Lin apologizes for her brother, thinking he gave Noor a difficult task. But he tells her not to worry, because he's getting paid for it, and he mentions that he owes her for the goblin hunt. We learn that Rain ordered them to stop over at the mountain district, before heading to the holy state of Mithra. Lin hopes that nothing bad happens during their trip, and Ines tells her not to worry, because she's there to protect them. We learn that she received a secret order from Rain, who told her that the royal capital is about to fall into crisis, so if she receives a report that it has been destroyed, she needs to take Lin and Noor to Mithra. She explains that she wants to stay in the capital, but he reminds her about her duty to protect Lin, saying she's the only one he can trust. As they take a break, Noor asks Ines if she's okay, because she appears to be anxious, so she explains that she's just thinking about something. She tells him not to worry, because she's going to protect him, saying she has a shield, but he becomes confused, telling her she isn't carrying anything. But she summons her divine shield, and she explains that it can block anything, so he just needs to hide behind it in case anything happens. He recalls that Lin told him she's stronger than Gilbert, who is so talented that he was able to defeat a dragon on his own. Noor thinks he's nowhere near their level, because he's struggled to defeat a goblin, and he tells her she's incredibly talented. In a flashback, we learn that Ines awakened her powers while she was in the orphanage, but she accidentally injured her friend. The sovereigns learn about the incident, and they tell her they have already healed her friend, but they want to see her powers. So she starts using it, and they call it a gift from the heavens, telling her it can be used as a sword or a shield, and it even has the potential to destroy a country. The sovereign shield Dandalk decides to take her in, and she learns to control her powers as she starts seeing him as her father. But she's still afraid of hurting the people around her, so she decides to keep her distance. But when Noor introduced himself, she immediately recognized him, because Dandalk always mentioned his name when he ran into trouble, wishing he was still around. So she felt jealous, because he's always thinking about Noor, even though she stayed by his side. Back in the present, Ines notes that she started to feel worse after she met Noor, but she knows she can't let her feelings cloud her judgment, because she needs to protect Lin. Noor sees a path in the wheat fields, and he mentions that he sees something moving, as Lin senses a strange presence, so she tells Ines to stop the carriage. She uses her uncover spell, and it shatters a barrier, and reveals a monster. Meanwhile, a soldier reports to the king, saying several beasts have appeared around the capital. So Rain issues orders, telling him to evacuate the citizens, and the king thinks Deridas is behind the attack. Rain thinks this is just the beginning, and the king asks him about the 6 sovereigns. So he explains that they've already been dispatched, but they're all over the capital, because the monsters appeared in various locations. The king realizes that his forces have been spread thin, but Rain mentions that Lin and the others are safe, thinking they should have made it to the city. We see a boy with the monster in the wheat field, as he mentions that he needs to kill his enemies. But his barrier suddenly shatters, and the monster attacks him, as Ines recognizes it as a black death dragon, wondering what it's doing there. It prepares to kill the boy, but Noor suddenly charges in, and he parries its attacks, but Ines knows that the boy appeared with the monster when Lin used her uncover spell. She recalls the moment Rain told her about the demon folks, which are demi-humans capable of controlling monsters. We learn that everyone hates them, because 200 years ago, they almost destroyed Mithra, so the humans hunted them to the point of extinction. But Rain thinks their descendants are still alive, and he believes they hold a grudge against humans. Lin realizes the boy was controlling the dragon, and Ines knows that it never leaves the marshlands, so she thinks he was planning to bring it to the capital. But he lost control over it, because he was shocked when Lin used her spell. Ines thinks Noor is a fool for protecting him, wondering what he's thinking, and Lin thinks they should help him, but Ines stops her. He notes that the dragon is slow, thinking he can hold out until Ines arrives, but the dragon suddenly shoots out a ball, and he knows the boy will be hit if he dodges. So he tries to stop it, but he suddenly starts bleeding, as he realizes it was poison. Lin wants to help him, but Ines stops her with her shield, telling her the dragon is about to cover the area with a poisonous mist. Ines explains that her duty is to protect her, because she's the only one who can revive the kingdom, and Ines thinks Noor is doomed, because the dragon's poison is extremely lethal. It releases a poisonous mist, but the shield stops it, and Lin uses her purification spell. But she realizes that the mist has already killed the birds, so she becomes worried, thinking Noor is going to die, and Ines notes that she wants to protect him, but she thinks there's nothing she can do for him. But as the mist disappears, she realizes he's still fighting to protect the boy, even though he's on the verge of death. She realizes why Dandalk thinks so highly of him, because he's willing to do whatever it takes to protect others, even if it means sacrificing his life. She thinks he's like a true shield, but she knows that he has already reached his limit, and the dragon continues to attack him as he struggles to defend himself. He ends up collapsing, and he coughs up some blood, but he still thinks he can win. In a distant city, we see the demon folk children being locked up because they're considered cursed for their power to control monsters. They are only given scraps to eat, and we see that the boy was one of them. He gets beaten for looking at his master, and he ends up going 3 days without food. We learn that he also has the ability to read the minds of people, and he can tell how much they hate him. Despite being treated so poorly, he never even thought about retaliating, but one day, his master came to him with a monster, telling him to use it to help the nation, promising to reward him and treat all of them better. He can't read his mind because his master wears a magical device, but he thinks he has always kept his promises. So he heads off with the monster, but when his barrier is broken, he loses control of the monster and it hits him away. He thinks he has failed his friends, but he's glad he didn't hurt anyone, and he hopes to be reborn with a better life where he can be useful to someone and eat good food. The dragon prepares to attack him, and he makes his peace, but Nor suddenly protects him. It fires its poison, and Nor stops it, but the boy is still affected. Nor notices this, so he uses his healing to help him, and it stops his bleeding, but Nor struggles, and the dragon fires another blast, but the boy is okay. Nor continues to fight, but he eventually collapses and coughs up blood, but he still thinks it's okay. In a flashback, we see Nor in the woods gathering herbs. He sorts through them when he gets home, but there are a few he doesn't recognize, and he decides to just make a soup with them. He finds it tasty, but it turns out to be poisonous, and he barely survives thanks to his low heal spell. He looks up the herb in his book, and sees it was the dragon's ruin which his mother told him never to eat. He tries to continue with his training, but he struggles and uses his healing again. He wakes up feeling better, but realizes he's hungry, so he goes out gathering again. He sees the dragon's ruin again, thinking he needs to be more careful, but he gets bitten by a snake and collapses from the poison. But he wakes up feeling okay, and he ends up eating the snake, finding it delicious. He gets another snake to bite him, and he realizes he's building up a tolerance, and he hopes it will give him a new skill. So he started trying other poisonous things, and even though he didn't get a new skill, he could eat poisonous things without too much problem. Back in the present, he thinks the dragon looks kinda tasty, and he thinks he has adapted to the poison. He continues to parry the dragon's attacks, and eventually breaks its claws. The boy finds him amazing, and he pushes the dragon back. The dragon prepares to use its full power, but Nor parries it directly, causing the poison to blow up its head. Nor thinks it's strange there was such a big frog near the city, thinking it looks tasty. He checks up on the boy, asking if he's alone, but the boy confesses to being the one who was taking it to the city. So Nor thinks the frog was for food, and he was just delivering it as fresh as possible, using a barrier to hide himself so he didn't get robbed. So Nor feels bad about ruining his delivery and apologizes, even offering to pay him for the trouble, but the boy says it's okay. Nor wonders how he was able to bring it so far, so the boy reveals he can control monsters, but Nor just thinks it's cool, calling it a blessing from heaven. The boy reveals himself as a demon folk, saying they can all control monsters, and Nor wishes he could have the ability, so he could get his animals to help out with his work. The boy wonders if he hates him, but Nor has no idea what he's talking about, so he mentions how everyone is scared of his power, and he also hates it. But Nor thinks it's super useful, and he shouldn't care about what anyone else thinks. The boy can't believe he can be useful and starts crying, wondering if it's really possible, but Nor assures him, saying there are plenty of people who would need him. Lin rushes over, preparing to treat Nor, but he mentions he's okay, saying he's pretty good against poisons, but Lin recognizes it was an extreme miasma, which destroys even the soil it touches, so she can't believe Nor could take a direct hit and be fine. She thinks there's only one possibility, remembering her teacher Sane, the Sovereign of Salvation, who was able to develop a technique that purified and healed all wounds after honing his body and mind for 40 years, so she can't believe Nor was able to gain it when he's still so young. Nor tells her to treat the boy, and she instantly can tell he's a demon folk child, so she thinks about killing him. She wonders what Nor plans on doing with him, but he suggests taking him with them. Ines tries to object, and Lin reminds him of what the boy was trying to do by bringing the monster, but Nor just thinks he messed up the boy's job by killing the frog. Ines can't believe he thinks the Black Death Dragon was just a frog, and Nor wonders who the boy was working for, but he says he wasn't told, and Ines can see from his eyes that he's just a slave. She wonders if he has a home to go back to, but he mentions he was blindfolded part of the way there, so he doesn't know where his city is. Noor suggests giving him a ride to the nearest city, and Lin thinks about her father telling her to trust her own eyes. She feels bad about seeing him as a cursed child from the rumors, instead of a boy who needs their help. Noor asks the boy for his name, and we learn that it's Rollo. Lin asks Ines to bring the boy, but she notes that since they are headed to Mithra, the demon folk are not allowed to enter, and if they leave him somewhere along the way, he will struggle to survive on his own. Lin wonders what they should do, but there's suddenly another man that appears. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.